Good morning. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We have some great questions for you that lead from your Women in Tech brochure extravaganza. So, what was the genesis of that?
Yeah, so that came to, I guess, concept in February when Sabrina reached out to me on LinkedIn about an event I did for Women in Tech, specifically focused on women in the telecommunications and communications space. And, I always answer all of my LinkedIn messages. And she had just said, like, I really love what you're doing. We should connect. I didn't know who she was. And my first thought was like, what is this person trying to sell me? Like that, that was what I thought. Right. But of course, like I took the initial phone call because I think it's really important to not like set boundaries in your own head. And we just sort of connected. And from there, this guide was born and it's had great traction. And I'm really excited to see where we take it from here.
Absolutely. That's very cool. I guess before we dig into that, you are lead 5G and telecom thought leadership. Can you give us a little bit of a background on that and what it is you do?
Sure. So I have been in the telecommunications industry my whole career. I started my career at Verizon as a network engineer, specifically focused on central office engineering and a lot of asset management. So getting old assets off the books that had to do with our copper network as we transitioned to our FTTP product, which is our FiOS fiber to the prem product. From there, I went into a product management role that I focused on it was like a software as a service we had called Verizon Concierge. It was a property management software tool, and I focused in the multi-dwelling unit space. And then I went into kind of a sales enablement hybrid marketing operations role. And after that, I came to Dell. So I spent about 14-ish years at Verizon. I came to Dell to focus on product marketing, specifically for telecommunications and our telecommunications solutions and products. And in January of this year, I transitioned over from product to thought leadership. So I lead what we focus on as telecom and 5G thought leadership. So a lot around use cases for 5G and edge, and really the enablement that telecommunications companies can bring to making sure these solutions that are truly life-changing, life-saving solutions like telehealth, manufacturing, retail, etc., come to life, because telecoms are going to be at the forefront of that piece of enablement for enterprises.
That makes a lot of sense. And then that varied background and varied experience you have, I'd assume that applies quite a bit to thought leadership. Can you tell us a little bit about how that applies? And feel free to insert a subtle brag.
There you go. I love it. So because I've had experience in marketing, in sales enablement, in engineering, and in product management, I know how to speak all of those languages. So the way that I speak to engineers is not the same way I speak to a sales team or someone in sales enablement or someone in product management. They care about different things. And it's really important that you speak to them in their language so that you can really get buy-in from all of your stakeholders. So having that varied background really helps me create that ecosystem of buy-in and helps us work as one team towards a common solution, which is helping our customers enable these 5G solutions so they can get an ROI on their investment.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the perfect segue into the idea of the subtle brag. Coming up as a woman on the engineering side of the house, I'm assuming you had to get really good at this skill set. So tell us, what is the subtle brag?
Yeah, so I spent the vast majority of my career not bragging. I spent the vast majority of my career doing a really great job, being a high performer, getting great reviews, and not getting ahead because I never shared what I was looking for in my career and what I was doing that was so great. And that is a mistake that I think a lot of people, especially women, make. They think they do a great job. They know they do a great job. They maybe got an accolade here or there, but they're not publicly sharing all the amazing work that they're doing because they're afraid that it's going to be misconstrued as this person is stuck up, this person is bragging. But you can brag in such a way that it really empowers others to do the same. And I'm a big believer in everyone can be in the top 10%. This isn't a me or you. And if I brag on you or I share something inspiring that makes you better at your job, that doesn't push me down. That doesn't mean that I'm going to have someone who's above me or better than me. I think that we can all lift each other up. I talk about this in the guide, that we lift by rising others. And I truly, truly believe that. So when I think about the subtle brag, it's all about sharing a challenge and sharing what you overcame in that challenge. Like, so you had this challenge, what did you do to overcome it? How did you overcome it? And then how can other people overcome it, right? So you're not on here like, I got this great degree, look at me. You're on here like, when I did my subtle brag in the guide that you'll read about, I talk about how I got a degree from MIT in COVID. And I talk about how it was really hard to go back to school in COVID when we're all like working and maybe caring for children or parents or whoever. But I went back and I got this degree. And then I shared how other people can do it too, like how you can maybe go back and follow your dreams in a remote setting or whatever the case may be. So I think it's really important that we don't just talk about ourselves, we talk about what we overcame, how we overcame it, and how someone else can overcome it too.
Wow, there's so many little golden nuggets in there. I like it quite a bit. The first one I caught was the opportunity that we can all succeed. We can all have opportunity. It's not a pie where every slice you take away, there's one less slice for everyone else. There's an infinite amount of opportunity. I love. And then the second thing was in that subtle brag, you talked about that kind of openness, rawness, and humility up front. And I think that's the key to the success is I'm telling you the vulnerable parts so that you can see what I did with them. And that allows the subtlety to the brag, right?
Correct. Yeah. I love that pie analogy because it's so true. People think like, well, if that person's doing great work, I can't do great work. No, we can all do amazing work. And I'll tell you, if you've got a team of high performers, that's only going to elevate everyone, right? So I think that's so incredible. It's that abundance mindset, right? That there's enough to go around instead of that scarcity mindset where you feel like there's not enough. There's lots of pie out there, right? we'll just multiply pies. I might have to use that in the next guide, Joe. Something about slices of pie.
Absolutely. And the opportunity, like you said, it's infinite, but sometimes we just have to shift a little. I know I've been in positions where there were 10 super technical people. So I went a little more talker, or there were 10 super talkers. So I went a little deeper technical. Just shift around into the gaps and there's always opportunity.
Yeah, totally. And to your point, my background allows me to do that. And I always recommend people try different things in their careers, even things you might not be good at. In transparency, the marketing operations sales enablement role wasn't my favorite. It was just a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of numbers. And that was something that I'm glad that I did because I understand that piece of the business now, but I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to pursue long term. And I think that's a great piece of advice in your career is try different things. If you have the opportunity, don't turn it down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great segue, that marketing side of it, a segue into how you use social media. So you're very powerful in the way in which you use social media and you bridge the gap between getting out there and taking risks, but still being a professional and empowering women while doing your job. So how do you put all that together? Can you share your thoughts on engaging in social media?
Yeah, I think you have to keep social media really positive. And I don't mean like toxic positivity. I mean like a very, to your point, like a raw and vulnerable way of sharing things, right? Like I'm not talking about like everything is sunshine and flowers, but what if you could share what was difficult and shared how you made it better? That is really the voice that I want to have on social media. And I think creating that voice is really important. And I realize that not everyone is going to be a fan of what I share on social media. They could say like, she's an oversharer. Like she shares way too much. I don't want to know about her personal life. And that's okay. Not everyone is going to like you. If you're a people pleaser like me, that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's really important as you develop your voice. My goal in social is if someone sees my post, they know it's me before they see my name. So they know my voice. they're like, oh, that's definitely Jillian on there. I also tell people, you are not a bot for your company. It's really important to breadcrumb about your company and maybe do some, posts about stuff that your company is doing. But you want to make sure that you're sharing things from your own voice. Obviously, there's a disclaimer here. You need to follow all of your company's social media policies and hashtag properly and all of the things. But you also don't want to just like copy and paste everything. You want to share it from your voice and why this is so cool. You know what I mean? Like why I just launched a really cool campaign. And of course, we're going to be sharing that from our social handles. But as I share it from my own handle, I'm going to use my voice to do that.
Absolutely. So that makes a lot of sense. So put a little of you into it, and don't forget that it's okay to be a little bit polarizing. Some people aren't going to like you, but the ones that do are really going to know and like you because they get you.
Yeah, completely. And I have to be honest, I haven't had a lot of hate on my LinkedIn stuff. I do keep it pretty neutral. I think that's important for work. But I guess my point is, if people don't like what I share, they don't have to follow me, right? And that's okay. But it's really important to remember that you're not a bot for your company, that you're an individual person, and it's okay to share your voice and things you believe in. And even better, if you're like me and you have the opportunity to work somewhere that supports you and has your back on your passion projects. Because I'm super lucky in the fact that if you guys follow me on LinkedIn, I TikTok on LinkedIn, like I'm sharing about this art of the subtle brag on there. Dell actually gave me opportunity to share it at a women's event we did, the guide that we did. And that's amazing when your employer has your back on your passion projects and is totally cool with you being yourself. Like, I feel like I can be Jillian Kaplan 100% at work, and no one is going to say like, oh, well, she's not professional, because maybe someone will say it, maybe behind closed doors. No one said it to my face like, oh, she's not professional because she TikToks on LinkedIn. No one says that. Like, it's like, Jillian, you want to do that? Cool. I had partners come to me and because I've TikToked about stuff we're doing with partners and been like, this is so amazing. Like, but it's in my voice. Like, yes, I'm still talking about work, but this is Jillian's personality. And I have people reach out to me all the time. Like, I want to come work there. It looks super fun there. I'm like, it is super fun. You probably do want to work here, right? Like it's great. So be yourself, share your success, share your struggle, and encourage others to do the same.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think if people want this sanitized corporate brand, they'll go follow the corporate brand. If you're out there, you want to do something different.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like I said, you always want to follow your corporate policies and, make sure that whatever certifications you need to post on social are there. And I always make sure that I do that. But it's also me. And people like that too. They want to know about you. I say people all the time, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. You want to make sure that people know, like, and trust you. And as we move into younger buyers, especially, they even have more of that mindset than like an older generation that, maybe just wants to know about like speeds and feeds and products, right? But as a younger generation, they want to know like about the people and about the culture and what it's like. And if it's a, socially responsible company, right? They care about those things a lot more. And I'm lucky that I work somewhere that is all of those things and lets me be myself and lets me do a little brag every once in a while and supports me. I think that's really important.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. So if you were going to give a few tactical tips for people, and especially tips for women, if they're specific, how could they start to insert subtle brags into their social media?
It's a great question. So I kind of recommend that 4-step or 3-step process where You have to think about something really great that you've accomplished. So start there and give yourself credit for it. Like allow your headspace to say like, you're amazing and you did that. And you've got to recognize that first if you're going to brag about it. And I know that sounds silly, like woo woo, but seriously, like you need to recognize that you have done something amazing. And then you need to think about what you overcame to accomplish that, right? So that's the first step. Like, what did you overcome to accomplish that? And then you really need to think about what, like what was the result of that? What did you accomplish as the result of that? And that would be your subtle brag, right? And then into how others can do the same, like how you can multiply that. So that's how I kind of construct it. Like, this is what I overcame. This is what I did. This was the result of what I did. And this is how you can do it too. You want to be adding value. Like just saying like, I did XYZ, that doesn't add value to anyone. But if you're sharing things that other people can learn from, or they feel inspired from, that's where the value comes. And if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I'm so inspired, cool, take some action. Follow those 4 steps I just gave you. I'm so glad you're inspired, but it's time to take action. And I will throw this out there. If you wrote a subtle brag and you want me to take a look at it, or you have something that you want to brag about and want help constructing a subtle brag, shoot me a message on LinkedIn and I will help you construct it. I do that all the time for people at Dell. And I'm more than happy to do that for anyone that needs a little bit of help just getting started.
That's perfect. And again, there's 2 just golden nuggets that were in there. The first one I got is if you're not willing to tell yourself you did an awesome job, if you're not willing to tell yourself you're outstanding, how can you expect someone else to? You've got to start with appreciating yourself. And then the second one was there at the end. It's that inspiration is great and it's so hard to find, but once you find it, you've got to take action and keep the inertia moving. Otherwise, you'll never take that action.
Yes, so important. And we're actually working on a workbook now where people can take that action. So not just like the guide is wonderful and it's very informational, but then people are struggling with like, well, what now? Well, we're going to build out a workbook so you can actually write your subtle brags, create your vision boards, all in this workbook that will help you propel yourself forward and make sure that you're staying on track. It'll be probably built out for like a year. We're still in process, but help people stay on track with their goals and not just feel inspired. Because all of us, like we read books, we listen to podcasts, we feel so inspired, but we get like information overload and we get paralyzed by it. You've got to start doing stuff. You have to start doing stuff because just taking in it's not osmosis. Taking in the information isn't going to make things better. It's like, and it's hard. It's hard to do things the first time. It's not hard as in it's not rocket science. Like it's not like difficult, but it's not easy. It's very simple, but it's not easy because you have to get over yourself and you have to just start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And keep that one foot in front of the other and moving forward. So with that have to just start. If somebody's listening to this and they're starting to get inspired and they want to get into social media to expand their network or their career or their influence, what's a first step? What's something tactical they could do as that step 1 to get past inspiration into action?
Step 1 is to, I would say, start posting and engaging consistently. So putting up 1 post a month isn't going to get you anywhere. But committing to 3 posts a week, right? Like maybe, 2 are very work focused and 1 is a little bit more about yourself. I call it a breadcrumb. Like you don't need to like word vomit on people and give them your whole life story in 1 post, but like starting to breadcrumb about yourself and share little things is extremely important as you start to build your own personal brand alongside your company brand and what you do every single day, right? So that's my first step is set some goals as to how often you're going to post and also make sure you're interacting with others. And that's one thing, like I said, we rise by lifting others. If I see your post in my feed, unless it's something like really offensive, I'm going to like it. I'm going to drop a comment. Why not? What do you have to lose by doing that? Absolutely nothing. So starting to engage with others is going to help them want to engage with you, bring them to your page. Listen, the first time I posted on any of my platforms, probably only my mother liked it. And that may be the case for you as well, but that's not a reason to give up. Like, we all start there, and you've got to really build from there and take learning lessons, and find your own voice.
Absolutely. And I think it's that interaction that's key. I know my first 6 months on Twitter many moons ago, I was just a consumer, just watching. And as soon as I started to interact, I could see that growth and see my influence expand, and my learning and network expand with it. So that's great first steps. Really, really appreciate that. And then to the big one, the one that we're all waiting for. What inspired you to help women in their careers? And what inspired you to do all the work that you put into this this brochure, this template or guide?
Yeah. So like I said, I spent a vast majority of my career doing really good work and waiting for really good things to happen. And they didn't. And that's not anyone's fault but my own. And that's a hard pill to swallow, right? Like, to say, like, it's my own fault, my career didn't grow. Like, you have to take ownership for those kind of things. And I shouldn't say it didn't grow in the way that I wish that it did. In the past, 3 years, I've taken ownership of my career. And I'll tell you that the job I'm in now, I literally begged for it. Like, when I found out it was coming to our group, and I was a little embarrassed to say that at first, but like, I mean, I put together plans. I was bothering, like, I was like, I need this, like, I want to do this, I want to do this. And finally they just gave in. I don't know if I annoyed them enough, or they decided that I don't know, but like, I really, really fought for this. And like I said, at first I was embarrassed to say that. Like, everyone wants to be like, oh yeah, they called me on the phone and handpicked me. Of course, like, who doesn't want to be handpicked for something? And that happens, but it doesn't happen that much. You've got to be the one to take ownership and say, this is what I want. This is why I want it. This is what I have to offer. And because I spent so long not doing that, I want to help other women do that sooner and realize that that's how they're going to be able to grow their career. And it's very hard. Like, it's awkward sometimes. It's hard to have those conversations. They're not easy, but they're important if that's what you want.
Absolutely. It reminds me of a quote somebody said to me the other day, and it's that the harder I work, the luckier I get. So the harder you're working for those positions, the more you'll get cherry picked for great positions. But you got to be out there, putting yourself out there. So I love that concept that you took ownership of your career. A lot of us just kind of go through the motions, or we sit in these default modes. You took ownership, and now you're where you want to be. So I think that's the thing, to take control. Do this with intent.
Yep, 100%. And like I said, don't be embarrassed if you're the one that has to speak up to get what you want. Not everyone is going to get picked, right? And oftentimes that doesn't happen because there are other people speaking up. So if you're the only one not speaking up, you're last, right? And not because you're the worst, because you probably aren't, right? Like, you're probably qualified, but you're not telling people why you're qualified and what you want. They're not, your management is not mind readers. That's what I thought. I was like, oh, they're mind readers. They know what I want, and they see I'm doing a good job. And as soon as I was like, yeah, they're not mind readers, Jillian, you can't just like wait for stuff to happen. As soon as I like played that back in my head, and I took ownership, and I took, things that were, and like, I take the bad stuff, but I also take the good stuff. And that's where the subtle brag comes in, right? Like, you take like the stuff that you have to own, the not so great stuff, as much as you own how awesome you are and your own subtle brags, because we're all pretty awesome. We just haven't told the world yet.
Absolutely. So you take the good with the bad, and the accountability with the brag. That's fantastic. And I think that's important to remember, right? You've got, managers are busy and they have a lot of people to manage. So it's not negative towards you, but if everyone else is the squeaky wheel, then you're the one not getting heard, not getting what you want.
Yep. And I'm outspoken, like, and you don't, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, I always share things. And you know what happens when you're outspoken? You get more work. And that's not a bad thing, because then you can share, like, hey, I spoke up about this. I got to take on this project and look at this amazing result. There's your subtle brag again, right?
Absolutely. This is fantastic. I think this is absolutely great information for everyone out there, and including the women out there in tech. So where can all of these people who are going to want to find you after this connect with you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. We can put the link into my bio in this broadcast. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm not as active on there because I talk too much for the amount of characters that that are on there. But it's the real J Kaplan on Twitter, as well as on Instagram. Feel free to connect with me over there. Would love to chat with you, and letting that offer stand. If you need help writing your first brag, let's do it together.
That's a great offer, and you should definitely take Jillian up on that. Well, thank you very much, Jillian. This is fantastic, and I learned a lot.
Thanks for having me.